There's a version of you that earns exactly what you earn right now and has 3 times the financial security. Same income, same city, same rent, same cost of living. They're not smarter, they didn't get lucky, they didn't stumble onto an investment that changed everything overnight. They just noticed something you haven't noticed yet. Most people believe overspending is a money problem. Too little income, too many expenses, too much temptation in too many places. Fix the income and the problem fixes itself. That's not what the research shows. Studies on household spending behavior consistently find that income increases rarely produce savings increases. Give most people a raise and their spending rises to match it within 6 months, sometimes faster. The bank account looks identical at a higher income level because the lifestyle inflated to fill it. The problem isn't the number on your paycheck. The problem is a set of invisible behavioral patterns running every single day, below the level where you'd ever think to look for them. 9 of them specifically. And not one of them is make a budget, cut your subscriptions, or stop buying coffee. When you actually see what these habits are, the spending stops feeling like a willpower problem. It starts feeling like an engineering problem. And engineering problems have real solutions. If that framing resonates with you, subscribe to Owen Wealth right now, because that is exactly how we approach money here. Not as a guilt trip, not as a discipline contest, as a system you can understand and redesign from the inside. Hit subscribe and let's get into all 9. The first thing worth understanding is this. Overspending almost never feels like overspending when it's happening. It feels like living your life. It feels like taking care of yourself. It feels like reasonable decisions made in moments that seem reasonable. The damage only becomes visible later. On a Sunday when the account is lower than it should be again, and you have no clear explanation for why. That gap between decision and consequence is exactly what these habits are designed to close. Habit 1. Stop making financial decisions while you're in a feeling. This sounds obvious until you realize how rarely people actually do it. Most people think emotional spending means splurging when they're sad or celebrating when something goes right. That version they can spot. They watch for it. What they miss is everything else. Tired? Your cost-benefit analysis collapses. Research shows decision quality drops measurably after cognitive depletion, and your brain processes a spending decision exactly the same way it processes every other decision. Exhausted people pay more, compare less, and regret more. Bored? Your brain is actively hunting for novelty stimulation. Shopping delivers exactly that. A rush of possibility, a sense of agency, a small decision that feels bigger than it is in the moment. Boredom is one of the most underestimated spending triggers in existence. Stressed? Purchases feel like control. When everything else is uncertain, buying something feels like a decision you can actually complete. The item barely matters. The sense of agency is what you're actually purchasing. The habit is not never spend when emotional. That's impossible, and it would make your life smaller. The habit is this. Before any non-essential purchase, name the feeling you're currently in. One word. Tired, anxious, bored, excited, lonely. That 1 second of labeling activates the prefrontal cortex, the rational processing part of your brain, and creates a small but real gap between impulse and action. Research from UCLA shows that naming an emotion reduces its intensity almost immediately. You don't need more discipline. You need a one-word pause. That pause is worth thousands of dollars a year for most people who build it into their routine. Habit 2. Spend on the category, not the item. Here's something I noticed that most spending advice completely misses. People don't overspend on individual purchases. They overspend on categories. You decide to invest in your fitness. Reasonable decision. Then you buy the gym membership. Then the new shoes. Then the resistance bands and the protein powder and the wireless earbuds because you need something to listen to while training. Each purchase is small. Each one makes sense. The category total is $600, and you haven't been to the gym once yet. Every intentional spending category opens a door to dozens of smaller purchases, each individually justifiable. The problem only becomes visible when you see the total. The fix is to budget by category, not by item. Before any purchase that falls inside a category, fitness, cooking, home, wardrobe, tech, set a monthly total for that category. Not per item, total. When the category is full, it's full. That constraint forces prioritization. If you want the yoga mat, something else in that category waits. The decision becomes real. What matters most inside this budget? That question eliminates the 10 small, reasonable purchases that accumulate into one large, regrettable month. Most budgets track expenses. Nobody overspends on a single expense. They overspend across a category. That is the thing worth tracking. Habit 3. Audit your defaults, not your decisions. People research carefully before buying a couch. They compare flights for hours. They deliberate on major purchases. And then they spend $300 on things they'll never use because an app kept them logged in, because the subscription renewed without a prompt, because one-click checkout removed every moment of friction between seeing something and owning it. The deliberate purchases are rarely where the money leaks. The defaults are. A default is any spending that happens without a fresh decision. Auto-renewals, saved payment methods, apps with pre-approved purchases, recurring charges from free trials that ended 2 years ago and converted to paid plans you forgot existed. Audit your defaults every quarter. Pull every recurring charge from your bank statement and your credit card. For each one, ask a simple question. Did I actively choose to pay this today? Not did I agree to it once. Did I consciously choose it this month? Most people find between $80 and $200 in monthly charges they would not pay if asked right now. Not because the charges are hidden, because they never required a new decision. That's the entire mechanism. Invisible spending is the most expensive kind because you never get a chance to decide differently. Habit 4. Separate want now from want actually. Want now is the pull you feel in the moment of exposure. You see it, something activates, your brain says yes. Want actually is what you still want 72 hours later, when the novelty has faded, when the scroll session or the store visit or the flash sale email is no longer in front of you. Those are two completely different states, and most spending happens in want now. The habit is a running 72-hour list. Every time want now fires, something catches your attention, you feel the pull. Add it to a note on your phone. Name, price, date. That's the entire process. Don't buy it. Don't research it more. Just list it. After 72 hours, look at the list. Most of what's on it will feel almost neutral. The want dissolved on its own without requiring any effort from you. No suppression, no willpower. The trigger that created the desire is simply no longer present, and without the trigger, the desire has no fuel. The items you still genuinely want after 72 hours are the ones worth evaluating seriously. You haven't deprived yourself of anything. You've learned to spend from want actually instead of want now. That single shift eliminates the majority of impulse spending for most people within the first 30 days of using it consistently. Habit 5. Match how permanent the spending is to how permanent the desire is. Purchases are permanent. The money leaves. The transaction closes. It's done. Desire is almost never permanent. The excitement of something new peaks at the moment of purchase and drops sharply in the first week. Within a month, most items have fully integrated into your baseline, and you barely notice them. Researchers call this hedonic adaptation, and it applies to nearly everything you will ever buy. The problem is a structural mismatch. You're making permanent financial commitments to feelings that won't last 3 weeks. The habit is to ask one question before spending. How long will I genuinely want this? Not how long will I use it? Not how long is it built to last? How long will I actively want it in my life? If the honest answer is a few weeks, the purchase almost never makes financial sense. If the answer is years, you're making a real considered decision. If the answer is, I'm not sure, that uncertainty is the answer. This question is especially powerful in clothing, gadgets, and anything driven by aesthetic trends, categories where desire peaks at discovery and fades fastest after ownership. The purchases that pass this filter are the ones that still feel right a year later. The ones that fail it are the ones you end up donating while wondering why you bought them in the first place. Habit 6. Make the future you specific enough to compete. The real reason people overspend isn't impulse. It's abstraction. Future financial security is abstract. It has no face, no texture, no deadline you can feel. The thing in your cart is concrete. You can see it. You can imagine holding it. The brain has everything it needs to want it right now. The human brain is wired to choose a concrete present over an abstract future. That's not a flaw to overcome. That's the design. The way to compete with a concrete present temptation is not discipline. It's making the future equally concrete. Here's what that looks like. Write a specific number, the exact dollar amount you want saved in 12 months. Not more savings, not a bigger emergency fund, a number. Then write one sentence about what that number makes possible. What pressure does it remove? What decision does it allow? What option does it create that you don't currently have? Put that somewhere visible. Lock screen, sticky note, doesn't matter. When a purchase impulse fires, the choice is no longer item versus vague future good. It's item versus $22,000 by December, because that number means I can walk away from any situation that's making me miserable. Concrete versus concrete. Now it's a fair comparison. Most people lose that comparison not because they're undisciplined, but because they never made the future specific enough to feel real. Make it real and the impulse stops winning automatically. Habit 7. Design your environment like money depends on it, because it does. Willpower is finite. Environment is constant. If you rely on willpower to avoid overspending, you will eventually fail. Not because you lack character, because willpower depletes throughout the day and hits its lowest point at exactly the hours when most impulse spending happens. Late evenings, post-work exhaustion, slow weekends. The moments when you're most susceptible and least defended. Using willpower to stop overspending is like holding your breath to avoid bad air. It works until it doesn't. Environment works whether you're exhausted, stressed, emotionally depleted, or at full capacity. The friction is there regardless of what kind of day you had. In practice, this means remove saved payment information from every retailer you don't use intentionally. The 90 seconds it takes to manually type your card number breaks purchase momentum for the vast majority of impulse buys. That small friction is doing enormous financial work. Uninstall shopping apps from your home screen. Every time you open one without intending to, Want Now gets a chance to fire. Remove the exposure and you remove the trigger. Unsubscribe from promotional emails. Your inbox is a curated pipeline of professionally engineered desire. Opting out is not missing deals. It is opting out of a system designed specifically to convert your attention into their revenue. These changes feel minor. Together, they reduce your daily exposure to purchase triggers by an order of magnitude. Fewer triggers means fewer impulse decisions. Fewer impulse decisions means more money at the end of the month. You don't build wealth by having more willpower. You build it by needing less. Habit 8. Track how the purchase feels 48 hours later, not at the register. Most people who track spending track what they spent and how much. Category, amount, date. That is useful. It is not the complete picture. The habit that actually changes behavior is tracking how you feel about a purchase 48 hours after making it. Not during, not immediately after, 2 days later. Immediately after buying something, your brain is in a reward state. Satisfaction is elevated. Justification is automatic. The purchase feels right by design. That data is misleading because the reward system is still active. 48 hours later, the novelty has passed. The rationalizations have faded. You have a cleaner, more honest read on whether the purchase delivered real value or just temporary emotional relief. For 30 days, rate every non-trivial purchase 48 hours after making it. 1 to 10. How do you actually feel about this now? Did it improve your life in a way you can name? Do you feel glad you bought it or quietly wish you'd passed? Within those 30 days, 2 patterns become impossible to ignore. The categories that consistently rate high, the spending that genuinely moves your life forward, and the categories that consistently rate low, spending that felt good to buy from and hollow 2 days in. Most people discover they've been systematically overspending in the exact categories that feel best in the moment and worst in ownership. Spend more on the high-rated categories. Cut the low-rated ones without guilt and without looking back. Habit 9. Find the number that changes everything and build toward it with intention. This is the habit that doesn't just change your spending, it changes your entire relationship to money. Most people don't overspend because they lack self-control. They overspend because they don't have a number, a real, specific, load-bearing financial target that changes what is possible in their life. Without a number, every dollar is equal. Spending feels the same as saving because neither one is doing anything visible. The account goes up and down, and the motion feels random, and the response is to spend, because at least that provides something immediate. With a number, every dollar has a direction. Spending that moves you toward the number has a clear opportunity cost you can feel. Saving toward the number has visible momentum you can see. The number I mean is not your retirement goal, not some 30-year projection. The number that first changes your options meaningfully and soon enough to feel real. For most people, it's somewhere between 3 and 6 months of expenses fully liquid. For some, it's a specific amount that makes one specific decision possible: leaving a situation, starting something, surviving a disruption without crisis. Whatever yours is, find it. Write it down as a specific dollar amount. Post it somewhere visible. Then build every spending decision around one honest question. Does this move me toward the number or away from it? People who have a number stop asking, "Can I afford this?" and start asking, "Does this serve where I'm going?" Those are completely different questions. They produce completely different answers. And the second question builds a completely different financial life. Here is what connects all 9 of these habits. None of them are about restriction. None of them demand willpower. None of them ask you to shrink your life so your bank account can grow. They are about replacing unconscious spending with conscious spending, making decisions before the moment of temptation instead of inside it, building enough clarity about where you're going that giving money away to impulse simply stops making sense. The version of you that earns exactly what you earn right now and has 3 times the financial security isn't running on more discipline. They just closed the gap between the decision and the consequence. They made the future concrete. They removed the triggers they didn't need. They gave every dollar a direction. That's the whole system. Not complicated, not painful, but it requires starting somewhere. Pick one habit from this list. 1. Apply it this week. The others will start to feel obvious. And when they do, we'll be here with the next layer.